it.
Oh, there we go. Oh my gosh, this is it.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Think Outside podcast presented by Baits.com. So today, guys, we have a pretty full crew. You know, we got our product development guy, Jack Dice here, other social media manager, Charlie. You guys want to give a brief introduction?
Yeah. I
should have
He
said
led with
that.
me, Charlie. He led with me. I'm in the top on my little bubble. I'm in the top corner. So I'm redoing this the same way, left or right.
All right, you got it.
Anyway, I'm Jack Dice. I'm the product development manager over most of our baits and lures here at JSM. So I'm involved. Really got it started with Yamamoto, and it's kind of worked our way up brand by brand. And just as we've added them to the portfolio, it's been adding a lot of different, I guess, different types of baits that I've gotten to play with, different people I've gotten to work with. But at the end of the day, I'm working with baits and tackle every day, so I can't complain about that at all.
Exactly.
Awesome. And I'm Charlie Peterson. I'm a social media manager at GSM as well. Work tandem with Joey, and also work pretty close with all of our pro staff and our anglers. So looking forward to talking to another one of our pros today.
Yeah, Chuck's our Northland guy. He came from Northland. He's from Minnesota. Says buddy, bud, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So
you look
today
bunkered in, Charlie. Like you're trying to stay warm. Some bunker. That's the vibe you're giving.
It's still pretty cold up here, but it's getting warm.
Good.
Getting in that 50 degrees maybe.
Dang, that's a heat wave for y'all.
Yeah.
So today we're bringing on a Bass Pro. Hopefully he loads in here in a second. There he is, Brett Hite, the man himself, the Zako man, Chatterbait man, whatever you want to call him. Here he is. How you doing, Brett?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah. Charlie looks like he's in his mom's basement.
I got her set up right here. So
he's
got the rod
sharpening up his Lindy rigs.
I got all my tips right here, so we're ready to go.
I love it. Just waiting for. When does your season open, Charlie? Pretty soon.
Yeah, second weekend of May. So we still got about 2.5 weeks.
So for the people that don't know, I guess up north, it's bizarre to me, but they can't actually bass fish until when, Charlie? May 7th or May 2nd?
I think the opener is May 10th this year.
Wow.
Around there.
Hey,
so.
Can't you go pike fishing?
Yeah, there's definitely some ways around it, but I don't like to dabble in that. But
awesome. So today we're really going to touch on, the Zako. Really, Brett, how do you pronounce? What's the correct way that you're supposed to pronounce Zako, the Zako? I don't even know myself, and I would love for you to kind of give us the full explanation, why the name, kind of how it came to be, and all that.
Yeah, I've always called it the Zako. I was the one who we kind of got the idea of a Japanese name. If you're from the South, you might call it Zako. Like Randy Howell, he's always saying that Zako, it'll be hot Zako. I'm like, Randy, it's the Zako. So Zako in Japanese means small fish.
Gotcha.
That's the easiest way to explain it. So just a kind of a cool deal, but it's funny. Everybody kind of pronounces it a little bit different. And I call it a Zako, you call it a Zako.
Yeah.
Tomato, whatever. But all it matters, it catches fish and it's a great bait.
Exactly.
Yeah, he and Joey actually got a solution for that. So like if you're just talking about it, the first part of the conversation, you can call it the Zako, and then a little bit later you can call it the Zako, and just kind of switch back and forth just to keep people on their toes,
Yeah, just to really mess with their mind, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just got to like people, right?
hit them
They
from
can
all
never know
angles.
the name.
That's funny.
So, Brett, can you kind of give us a little bit of your background with even Yamamoto? How long have you been with Yamamoto? Kind of your professional career altogether and where you're at now?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably one of the oldest Yamamoto pros. I started with Yamamoto in 1998 was when I first got my sponsorship.
Wow.
I won my first pro tournament when I was a senior in high school, fishing a Yamamoto hula grub, and got a sponsorship. Obviously, they're an Arizona-based company back then. They had a pro shop in Tempe, Arizona, and then of course Page is where everything was made. So I used to be one of those geeky kids that used to go hang out at the pro shop down there, and that was like the mecca of West Coast bass fishing. Like everybody hung out there. It was kind of like going to the barber shop. You heard about whatever's going on, but all the cool guys hung out there. John Murray, Ben Masubu, Rob Vanderkoy. I mean, it was just the whole crew, and kind of got in with those guys, and been with them for a long time. And it's awesome having a sponsor where they make great baits, and you have confidence in them, and they've just been a great company for me. And like I said, my longest sponsor.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And kind of where are you at now with professional bass fishing? I know, but maybe some other people don't. You started MLF. Kind of give that quick, brief story.
Yeah, so this is like my 24th or 25th year on tour. I started in 2000 on Bassmaster Top 150s.
Nice.
And when they switched to the what would be the elites now, I went to FLW Tour and fished from 2006 to, let's see here, 2014. 2014, I fished the elites and FLW Tour.
You had a good year.
And then in 2014 all the way to 2019, I believe, I went to the MLF Bass Pro Tour. Now I'm fishing the Bass Opens, trying to get back on the elites. But in 2008, I won back-to-back tournaments and FLW tours, and that's when I kind of broke the Chatterbait code. And then in 2014, I won Okeechobee FLW Tour, and then first stop at the elites on Lake Seminole, of course, on the Chatterbait. So after that, I'll kind of give you a little brief deal. We started designing the jackhammer with Evergreen International, and then we teamed up with Z-Man on that. And I actually drove up to Page and visited with Ron Colby. I'm like, hey, I think I can make a better mousetrap, to say on a trailer. So he's like, why don't you drive up here? It's like a 4-hour drive from my house to Page. And we literally penciled it out on a sheet of paper and took it over to the machine shop, and they cut a CNC mold, and that's kind of how it started.
That's incredible. So that's kind of how the Zako started. You drove up there and sat there and designed the bait.
Yeah. We just, we got a ruler out. He's like, how long do you want it? How big do you want it? Such and such. And we had the first prototype was a little bit slimmer than what I would say the original one is. So it kind of came out a little slimmer, more like the new Zako Slim.
Yeah.
It was a 4-inch, but it didn't have the big belly. Like you can compare these two. Definitely see them. So, and I told him I wanted a bigger belly on it to have just a little bit that drawing power of a bigger bait fish. So we redesigned it and got the original. Now we have a 3-inch and then the 3.5-inch Slim, which kind of, it's a full range of them. And we have the paddle tail too. A lot of guys really, really like that paddle tail. I use it like on a swim jig. It's just a phenomenal swim jig trailer. So we got a whole line of them. And I mean, obviously, you really never know how it's going to go. And then when you start, seeing it, whether it's on Tackle Warehouse and it's, top sellers all the time, then you're like, I guess it is a pretty good bait. I knew it was a good bait. But it's just a phenomenal trailer. And the thing, that people don't understand with the chatterbait, the chatterbait itself has so much action and vibration because of the blade.
Yep.
So I really don't like a paddle style swim bait on it. Some people do. But the bait itself has so much action. I want something that's very subtle and lifelike instead of having a big kicking tail on it. So it just looks real natural. It looks real like you don't see a bluegill and he's wagging his tail like this. It's real tight, so it looks real natural. And that's the biggest thing with the chatterbait is putting a bait or a trailer on there that has a real tight action that looks natural. Because the bait has so much action, you don't want to overpower the chatterbait with a trailer.
Gotcha. What really, can you dive into why you designed it how you did, like that first initial 4-inch? Like, why did it look like that? Like, why did it have that short little tail on there? Jack can probably speak to this better than I can or ask better questions. I'm not much of the product guy, but that's just, I've always wondered that myself.
Yeah, so I wanted a swim bait style trailer that has, a big profile to it with a big belly. Obviously a lot of big fish eat the chatterbait, and they're looking for a gizzard shad or a bluegill or whatever, a bigger bait fish to attract those big bites. So that's why we put the bigger girth on and the big belly on it. The segmented tail obviously gives it some action, very subtle action, and then just a V style tail on the back with it's got a little ridge around the back that it allows it to push water a little bit. That also acts like an accordion. When the fish gets it, it folds up. So it helps them actually get the bait a little bit better. And then having this, the bulkiness of this, it actually brings the bait so you can actually fish it a little bit deeper, and gives the bait some weight to it.
Gotcha.
Which helps get the bait down in the water column. So like if we were to put a Yamacraw on it, that's why I always tell people, like, if you want to keep the bait up in the water column, you want like a kicking craw or something like that. That's going to bring the bait up. Same with a swim jig. The paddle tail Zako is going to keep the swim jig down in the water column. If I want it like almost subsurface, I'm going to put a Yamacraw on it, something that lifts the bait up in the water column.
Gotcha. So will you actually put a Yamacraw on your chatterbait too, if you want it up there?
I personally don't, but there are guys, especially on the coast, like tidal coast, where there's a lot of crabs and stuff like that. They'll want like about 3-inch Yamacraw would be perfect. Like a lot of time those fish are eating blue crabs, those little tiny blue crabs, like down in Louisiana and places like that. So, and they're fishing very, very skinny water. So, sometimes it'll just, all the dogs are going crazy, Hey, the UPS guy was just here. What did you send me, Jack? I know you sent me something.
I can't tell you this is probably going to go live sometime soon, so I can't tell you what I said.
All right. I'll just have to open it on live.
Good. Yeah. Go grab it and show it. A little tease.
Yeah. A little tease. Like just no. But so we wanted, a bigger body trailer that gives the bait some drawing power. You hear about all the big swim bait guys talking about drawing power. And that actually draws the fish. Just having that bigger profile bait, gets those bigger bites. And so that's kind of what we were gearing for. A subtle action, big profile that looks like a bigger bait fish. And, it's just something that it works really, really well. It's designed for the chatterbait, it fits it perfectly. It's just a good one all the way around.
Was there, so I keep asking a lot of questions. I'll let Jack and Charlie get in after this question, but was there a certain time when you were like testing this trailer where you're like, yeah, this is going to be the best chatterbait trailer of all time? Like in my mind, the Zako, I might be a little biased because I work for the company, but if you ask anyone, everyone knows like, oh, the Zako, that's why I'm using the chatterbait trailer. Like, was there a time when you're testing, you're like, yeah, this is the deal?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got that first prototype mold, they shipped them to me in like a big 50 pack, and I gave my boy Brent Ayler, I gave him half of them, and we were out there fishing them, and he's like, dude, this thing's bad to the bone. And and just with any bait, to really, if you could produce the best bait, and unless you get some tournament, whether it's winnings or doing good, or you see it on live, that's really what projects the bait in sales. Is you could have a great bait that nobody knows about, that Jack and I only know about, and the sales will not really reflect how good the bait is until somebody really starts doing well on it.
Totally. Yeah, there's baits we fight that all the time where we're like, you see the numbers, you're like, how do people not realize how good of a bait this is? And it's a real shame. But like I was trying to think back when you talk about the success of the Zako. So it was in that 2014 event. I remember watching it, back in the day. That was the Swim Cinco was your primary trailer of choice. That was before the Zako existed. Was it the 2016? Was it 2016 Winyah Bay? Was that
Winyah Bay is when, yes, that's when I kind of let the cat out of the bag on the jackhammer and the Zako at the same time. I called Ron Colby. I'm like, hey, I'm leading the tournament going in the last day. Can I say something about this? And he's like, there's no better way to promote a new bait is on live when you're leading the Bassmaster tournament. And I ended up getting second on that. And that's when the jackhammer and the Zako kind of hit the market, or the word started spreading virally.
Totally. Can you kind of like talk through that tournament? I mean, I remember watching that one where weren't you making some like just insane run, and you were absolutely, I mean, I know for the first 3 days, I think you murdered them on a chatterbait. Like, you just talk through that tournament?
Yeah. It was weird. So I was running to I believe it's the Santee River, or Santee River, the
Cooper River?
Cooper River. Yeah, the Cooper River. Yeah. And I went over there and practiced, and had a couple really good days. It reminded me of the California Delta when I got over there. And like I fished one day close, and I'm like, it was all right. And I'd heard about the Cooper River. And so I was like, screw it, I'm going to go over there. And it's not really a long drive by car, but in the boat, it's a long drive. So I go over there and practice for 2 days, and I found some really good spots. I was like, California Delta, I won there with 105 pounds on the chatterbait. And I was like, this reminds me of exactly like the California Delta. And so by the way, I beat Brent Ayler. He got second with 102. So you don't want to rub that one in. So I went over there. I found a few spots. The first day we had a fog delay, and I was like, that's all I got. I mean, like, I know if I can get there, I can catch them. And it's a tidal fishery, so, and I mapped it all out I never made the run in practice. So I mapped it all out. We had to run in the intercoastal for, I don't know, it was like almost an hour and 45-minute run to get over there. Had to get fuel. I would stop and get fuel on the way, so then I didn't have to stop later. I mean, this is the craziest thing. You're driving your bass boat down the intercoastal, and dolphins are jumping next to the bass boat. And you're like,
I know. I've been there one time for a college natty, and that was the only time I've ever seen dolphins. I was like, where are we? We should not be bass fishing here.
It was crazy. There was sturgeon when I was there too. It's nuts.
Yeah. So then we go to the meeting, and this guy gets up here, is law enforcement. He's like, you guys going to the Cooper River? There's a nuclear submarine facility there in the Cooper River, and there's buoys all around it. and there's like a Zodiac boat with a 50 cal machine gun on the front. And he's like, whatever you guys do, you guys can run through there, but don't stop. Like they're gonna kind of flank you and push you out. Don't stop by the nuclear submarine. We're like, yes, sir, we got that, you know? So we run all the way up there, and I just blast them for the first 3 days. And then the last day, the wind kind of switched, and the water got real skinny where I was fishing. And they just, I probably, I only had 4 the last day, and I lost by like less than a half pound.
Oh my gosh.
To Britt Myers, which he's a good buddy of mine too. He did a phenomenal job. But I should have just picked up a drop shot with a margarita mutilator worm and went in. I had one little ditch where I could catch them every once in a while, but you've been blasting them so good for 3 days, you think you need a big stringer. So then I started running around, and really all I need is one more fish. So,
Gosh.
but yeah, that was an adventure. The other longest run that I've ever been to is we had a top 150 out of at the Louisiana Delta, and I drove 2.5 hours all the way to Venice one way.
One
way, 2.5 hours.
Dude. So did you have to stop getting gas twice?
Yeah, I don't really remember. That was in like 2001. You guys probably weren't even.
I wasn't even born yet. I was born in 2002.
Oh my gosh, Joey. Here we go.
You ran for 2.5 hours one way. So would you fish for?
Yeah, you fished for like 2.5 hours.
Did you catch him good, or was it?
No,
terrible?
I didn't catch him. and listen to this. I drove all the way 2.5 hours, and I get there, I shut down on my spot, and here comes Randy Dearman in the same exact spot, run 2.5 hours, and one other guy finds it too. And it's like, oh my gosh. And then, I mean, when you only have a couple hours to fish, you know, you got to have a spot where you can catch them quick. It's not like, oh, you go in there and it takes you an hour to get 3 bites, or, you know, it's like you can't have a grinder spot. You got to have a spot where you like it's a catching spot. You know, it's just kind of like locking last week at the Tom Bigby. I mean, if you wanted to lock 3 times, like you're going to have a small window of fishing time. So you better have a spot where you can catch them super, super quick. And that's at the Tom Bigby, there's not really a lot of those spots.
I didn't get the impression there were many of those. No.
Yeah. I mean, you catch a lot. I mean, like the first day I had like 20 bites, but they got to be 14 inches, and they're all like, you know, 12 and a half. And they're just like, they're like the skinniest 12 inches you ever seen. You're like, poor bass.
Yeah.
It's like swim north to Pickwick. You'll get bigger, you know?
What's the longest run you've been on, Jack?
I've never done quite like that. The longest I've ever done I can think of is probably just running down to like the mouth and it's St. Lawrence, running down from Waddington to the mouth. I mean, that's a
big run. Hour and 20 minutes, huh?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
So and then if you get down there and there's waves and it's the same deal. It's crazy nowadays. It seems like guys just are so much more efficient and find the same stuff now more than ever that you run like, you know, an hour and a half one way and the same thing. You shut down, there's 3 people there at the same spot. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you thought you had a spot where you could catch them in 3 or 4 hours. Well, now you got it divided up against 3 other guys, and then it gets a little tough, you know. But, and, you know, and especially in those places, I mean, when you have, you got wind that can be involved there that could really, you know, the wind comes up and you really can get messed up. I remember I went to Pelee Island. It was on Lake Erie. It's 40 miles out there. It took me 2 hours and 15 minutes to go 40 miles. And when I got there, I was running a Ranger with 2 tanks. Okay.
Yep.
When I got there, I did my first drift, and it was like 7 footers. I had 2 drift socks out.
Oh my gosh.
And I go to do my second drift, and the first tank runs out, and I'm like, dude, this is not good. Like, I'm in Canada, I'm in the middle of Lake Erie around an island, and
giant
Dion,
waves.
yeah, and giant waves. And Dion Hibden, him and I were doing the same drift, and I'm like, dude, what are we gonna do? He's like, I don't know. Well, needless to say, the wind died down, and it only took me an hour to get back, so I had enough fuel. But yeah,
It's insane.
there's a lot of variables that can happen when you're running that far, and which, you know, it's risk and reward. You got to kind of analyze that.
It's kind of scary when you're on the Great Lakes and you see, you know, a legitimate 100-foot barge driving past you, and you're like, why am I out here? Like,
Yeah.
and that happened to be at Saginaw, and we're out there just like getting murdered by waves. Run out to the Charity Islands, and we had like 5.5, 6 pound salt on a bed, and I was like, oh, let's just go out there, let's catch them and come back in. We were just getting smoked the whole way out there, like graphs are falling off and everything. It's like,
yeah.
what am I doing out here?
Yep. Yeah, and then if you get there and your trolling motor's ripped off and your electronics are ripped off, it didn't do you any good. So, I mean, there's that happy median of, okay, I need to go fast, but I can't tear up my stuff. When
Exactly.
if I get there and nothing works, then I might as well turn around and go back.
Joey,
I mean,
it sounds like Joey was just gonna send it either way for that.
We were
yeah,
Joey
he's
was going to send it every time.
Yeah, whatever.
being a
Just-
vlogger, we
just
knew where he
send
was
it.
at.
Yeah.
Dude, the funny thing is, though, we actually got way out there, found the fish. It was, you know, huge waves, 4-footers. If you ever tried flogging in 4-footers, it's nearly impossible. It's 2 people get on him, and it's like biting it. He sets the hook because he thinks he has it, ended up snagging him, so we had to let him go. It was like, there's no way. We just ran all the way out here.
And then he snagged him.
Literally had to let him go. It was terrible.
You couldn't get him to bite again?
No, gone. Left the bed. I've never seen him do it in my life, and I've flogged a lot of smallmouth. Like, let him go. He was totally gone.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's a heartbreak right there.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. Then
That's
I caught.
when you just call for the trailer. Hey, come pick me up out here.
Hey, it's time to go in, right?
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
So, Brett, what would you say your best tournament was on the Chatterbait? You kind of talked about when it, you know, you let it out of the bag, obviously, at Winyat Bay, you know, the Zako Chatterbait combo. What was your best tournament? Was it when you beat Brent Ayler? Can you kind of talk through that?
I mean, so my first tour victory, in 2007, I was at Clear Lake fishing a National Guard FLW Tour event, and I got a top 10 there, and I was practicing. I was catching them on deep structure on a jig, and I was practicing, and I literally sat down. I was in the north end of Clear Lake. It's all grass. I sat down, and I was eating a sandwich, and I tied on a green pumpkin Phoenix vibrating jig, and I put a swim bait trailer on it, and I cast it out sitting on the deck, and I start winding it in. And this is kind of like Brian Thrift won, I think, in 2005 in Okeechobee, and it kind of picked up, but then it lost some steam. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try this thing. They say it's good in grass. I cast it out sitting on the deck eating a sandwich, and I'm winding it in, and a 6-pounder eats it. And I'm like, huh. So I end up getting a good draw. I make it to the finals. And on the last day, my deep spot kind of fizzled out a little bit. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go throw this chatterbait around up there. And I absolutely blast them in 2 hours. So the next FLW, first stop of the FLW tour in 2008 is at Lake Toho. So I'm like, man, I think this thing will work. So in practice, I'm like, I go around, I find this area, it's like bite after bite after bite after bite, and there's boats all around. And I'm like, so I'm shaking them off.
Yeah.
I go there, and it was like post front the first day of the tournament. And everyone's like punching these mats, and I'm going around them, and I just absolutely throttle them and end up winning that tournament by like 20 pounds. And then I got in my truck. And drove all the way to the California Delta for a National Guard FLW tour event there. And I'm like, hey, and I got there like the day practice started, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. I just won my first tour event. You know, I'm like, I think I can catch them. I went to an area where I always catch them. I've spent months and months there. It was my favorite place in the country to fish. And it just wasn't going. They had sprayed a lot. And I'm like, you know, I'm going to go down to one of my other little honey holes. And I go down there, and there was not a boat for miles. And the hydrilla was just beautiful. And I would have 25 to 28 pounds by 10 o'clock in the morning. And I ended up weighing 105 pounds and beat Brent.
That's so
awesome. Yeah. And so I ended up winning 250 grand in like 2.5 weeks. So that's kind of
Chatterbait.
Yeah, on the Chatterbait.
Nuts.
Yeah. And then, of course, in 2014, I had 2 wins that year on it. And then we started developing the Zako and the jackhammer, just trying to make a better mousetrap, you know. And I kind of have a design background. My dad's an architect. And, you know, I think that was just kind of implemented in me, like, hey, look at something, and whether it's, you know, how to rig your boat, or, you know, just can this be made better or more efficiently, or, you know, just so that it works better.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of approach things with baits or rods or whatever it might be.
Kind of segueing, you know, from the design, Jack, do you and Brent want to kind of talk about the 3.5-inch Zako Slim? It's brand new product. Kind of why I really wanted to have this podcast was to talk about it and why we did it. You know, talk through the whole process of the idea behind it and how we took it to market, and you know how we're marketing it now. I can touch into that too.
Yeah, so it's kind of a perfect segue. I can tell you take a little. It seems like you enjoyed beating Brent Ayler. I don't know why. I just get that vibe. But he was actually one. You talk about that original Zako that was a little bit slimmer in the belly. That was the first drawing, the first one that was made. And I know that Ayler still had some because I talked to him. It was, I want to say, sometime last year, and it just randomly came up in conversation with him. And he was like, "Man, that one." He's like, "I loved that one too." He's like, "I love the new Zako for a regular jackhammer, but he's like, man, I liked that thin one too." And so since we came out with the 4-inch, we had that 3-inch one a couple years ago. It's a really good little, you know, snack. This little Zako snack. That's a great little tiny one. But when I've thrown like a mini max, there were times where I'm like, this is almost too short, because taking it from a 3 to a 4, you lose a lot of that length. I love the bulk of the Zako and the action, but it lost a lot of the length got too small. And there were times where, man, the 4-inch on like a mini max or now like that new baby jack, it just seemed like a little too big. So it's like, well, I just need something to split the difference. And you already had this design put together that was like the perfect middle ground, where you still have a little bit of length and a little bit of bulk, but it's just kind of a perfect happy medium. So that's where it shines, is when you don't want the super finesse, but you need something smaller than the original.
Yeah, and when you get to more of like a finesse style chatterbait, like the baby jack here, or like the stealth blade or the mini max, if you put a big bulky bait on it, it has a tendency to blow out. It just overpowers the bait. So that's really why this Zako Slim, I mean, you can see we took the belly out of it and thinned it up this way too.
Yep.
And it's almost identical, the original design. The original one was a 4-inch, and we just shortened it up. So we have a 3, 4, or 3, 3.5, and a 4. But on some of those more finesse style chatterbaits, a little less bulky trailer will really make the bait perform better.
Gotcha. Okay. So you kind of started off with, you know, it was actually one of the original designs was kind of a slimmer one, and we kind of brought it back. Was that the idea behind it, Jack?
Yeah, I mean that's again, like you said, it's that original 4-inch shape that was slimmer, and took it down to a 3.5-inch, because again, when you get to that 4-inch size, that deeper belly, what I love about it personally is when Brett's talking about efficiency, my experience is with that 4-inch Zako, when you put it on a regular 1/2 ounce or 3/8 ounce jackhammer, it is the most efficient trailer that you have. It works under the most conditions, and the
Yep.
bulkiness of the trailer allows me to skip it. I can bring it over and through cover well. But I think it was the stealth chatterbait was the first time I ever put a Zako on it, a 4-inch Zako on a chatterbait, and went, man, this just doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
And it was because of that. And so they're just needing to match. Again, as our fisheries get more pressured, I'm sure Brett knows this more than anybody, that they don't bite the jackhammer in every scenario like they used to back in the day.
Exactly.
People wind a chatterbait around like they've never seen it. They've seen it now.
Yeah,
So you need trailers to match.
Yeah.
It works in so many different ways, but like, Brett, what's like the ideal, like if you're gonna draw a picture of like the ideal scenario where you're just gonna pick up a chatterbait and a Zako and fish all day? What does that look like?
Pre-spawn with aquatic vegetation, hydrilla being preferably. Those fish. I mean, you think about the chatterbait. Why is it so good? And for me, a few things come to mind. And one thing is the vibration. Well, what does it feel like? It feels like probably one of the best bass lures ever invented, and that's a rattle trap. Very similar. And a rattle trap's always been known as a great pre-spawn bait. Something about that tight vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously a rattle trap has noise to it. The blade hitting the head on a chatterbait has that similar style noise. The other thing is how efficiently you can fish it in grass, whether it's just subsurface or 10-foot deep grass. The other thing is you can put a trailer on it that gives it that big profile that gets bigger bites.
Yeah.
Another thing is I can fish it in places that you can't fish a lot of other reaction baits. You can't skip a square bill 40 feet under a dock. It does not work. So, and then you have the deflection. You know, it deflects like a square bill when it hits cover. It's super efficient in structure. And when I first got on it, I thought it was just a grass bait, strictly just a grass bait. And I catch them. I go to Lake Mead and catch them, and it's 20 foot. You can see 20 foot deep. You get a little wind, you start throwing it right on the bank, and they eat it. So, I always tell people, wherever you used to throw a spinnerbait, throw a chatterbait. And we have lots of different colors, whether it's in the jackhammer or in the Zako. But somebody who's a new chatterbait fisherman, I give them this tip. You need a dark one and you need a shad colored one to start off with.
Yep.
Keep it simple right off the bat and then expand what you have confidence in.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Do you have any like little, I guess, different ways you work a chatterbait? So I know I've, catch him just straight retrieve. This is open for anyone if they want to answer too. I've caught him on Gunnersville when it's real pressured, like really literally dragging it on the bottom like a jig and just having that vibration to let it sit down and rip it back up really slow. What do you? I'm sure you've got some little tricks.
I've seen other guys, fish it kind of like a jig and just like letting it fall all the way down to the bottom, fishing it slow, kind of just like a football jig too.
Yeah.
All you do is cast it out and wind it in.
Come on, give us some juice.
I think some people. At the right scenario, probably more times than not, they reel it too slow. You wanting to get them to react to that. Obviously, you got to reel it slow enough to where it hits the cover, whatever cover you're fishing. But, I think reeling it faster is better than slower to get that reaction bite. And a lot of people, I think, have a tendency to slow it down too much. That's another thing, like fishing around wood, like you feel the wood coming up to it. If you slow it down, you're probably going to get hung up. If you speed it up through that wood, it has a lot less tendency to get hung up.
Yeah. And really deflect. Totally. Jack, you got any little tricks you want to spill?
Well, I don't know about if I've got any sneaky tricks that would top anything Brett's got, but I've definitely, when you're talking earlier about trailers, about when you might throw a craw versus something like the Zako, at least I fished the James River, I fished Potomac River, those tidal places like where you talk about. That is definitely like that was my introduction to a chatterbait in those places was with a craw flapping trailer. And a lot of times it seemed to do best for me around like actually around wood that craw trailer with the two, claws on the end act as a way to almost keep the bait balanced and keep the hook upright as you come over limbs. And it seems to be a little bit better coming through wood cover, which again, traditionally you think of a chatterbait, you think of grass, and because it will roll, that hook will roll over as it comes over limbs. But my experience is a craw trailer like the Yama craw helps keep the bait from turning over and getting hung in brush. So that's something that I've done, around here out east.
Nice. Chuck, you got anything sneaky up there? Or do they just bite a sock in Minnesota?
No, I guess mine is kind of opposite from kind of what Brett was saying. Like sometimes it's kind of like just kind of stroking it, like letting it fall and then just pulling it. And that's kind of, for fishing deeper. Other than that, it's, just a straight retrieve and
Wind it.
fishing it pretty fast. Yeah.
I'll tell you the one interesting. So I can't remember. Brett? Did you go to Bacharach with the Yamamoto crew that one year?
I did, yeah.
So I think I missed you. I think there were two. They went down for 2 weeks, and it was like a group A was 1 week, and group B was another week. Yeah. That was like my first like big trip for any fishing company. But I got to go. I think it was week 2. I missed you, but one of my like all-time dream scenarios, like bucket list things, was I got to fish, be in the boat with Roland, and take photos and fish with him a little bit. And he was throwing the 1 1/4 ounce jackhammer, and he was taking a Yamamoto Cowboy, and we were fishing Bacharachs. There's no real grass in it. It's mostly like sloping, gravelly rock banks.
With wood, wood, isolated wood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he was taking that deep one. It was like a more post frontal day. So like they kind of weren't like up on the bank. They weren't up on the bank that morning. So he was taking it and fishing it out deeper. And he was literally just pumping it like a jigging spoon, letting it go to the bottom, letting it go to the bottom. Oh, son, I got one. That's a big one. And it's 6, 7, 8, 9 pounder. And he wrecked them on a 1 1/4 ounce, just pumping it like a jigging spoon.
Yeah, I got on that bite during the first week. And before I left, Ron Colby and Roland, they stole all my 1 1/4s. They're like, B, you got to give us every one you got, It's like, okay. And here's the good scenario. That 1 1/4, like fishing that 10 to 20 foot range, letting it out and pumping it. And so listen to this. So if you go and you pump it like that, and then you're letting it fall and he bites it when you're at this level, you don't get a good hook set. Okay. I always like to do a side sweeping hook set is a lot better than like a worm hook set on a chatterbait. Yeah. So what I got to doing was casting out there, let's say 15 foot, and you pull it to the side and then let it fall, pull it to the side. So then when he bites it, you're in position here. You're not up here when he bites it. So you get a lot better hookup ratio with it. If I'm going to pump the chatterbait, I want to pump it kind of a side pump like that instead of up like this, because if he bites it at the top when it just starts falling, you don't have enough leverage to get the hook in them.
Yeah, they lose them. Wow, that sounds like an insanely fun bite.
Yeah, I took out Ryan Deshane from Wired Fish, and I wrecked like 7, 8 pounders on that 1 1/4 ounce, and it was a good time, man. But that thing, that 1 1/4 ounce, it will wear you out casting around, but it's a little bit kind of under the radar, And one of my favorites is like this 3/4. And the 3/4, if I'm fishing like an upland reservoir, like let's say in Norfolk or Table Rock or out west, this is going to be like my 1/2 ounce. It gets down in that water column a little bit more, a deeper reservoir style lake. I really like the 3/4 ounce. And this is actually one of our new colors that Jack and I designed, and that's that green pumpkin shimmer. It's just a beautiful, just all around kind of sexy looking color on the green pumpkin shad right there. So
I love it.
Yeah, but it's a fun, addicting way to fish. You know, I'm so gratified. You know, that I get so many people that come up to me and that, you know, they love the Zako, love the jackhammer, and you know, whether they caught their, I guess as youngsters would call it the PB, you know, or they, you know, just they won a tournament. I just get so many stories on both those baits, and it's pretty cool that you know, I help people actually catch fish every once in a while.
Totally. No, it's cool. It's just an incredible bait all around. You know, we were talking about how you can use it in so many different ways in wood, grass. Do you switch up your, you know, rod reel combo for that? Do you have a slower gear ratio if you're fishing grass, stronger rod? Kind of, you want to talk through what your setup is?
Yeah, I mean, I use the same rod whether I'm throwing a baby jack or just a regular jackhammer. You know, I like a 6.3 to gear ratio, like a 6.3 Daiwa Tatula Elite. I can speed it up or I can slow it down, because if it's, let's say it's cold pre-spawn, sometimes you want to slow it down. And if you get a 7-to-1, you have a tendency to over reel it sometimes too. So with that 6.3, it's kind of in the middle. You can wind it real fast, or you can slow it down if you need to. And I, on a regular style chatterbait jackhammer with a Zako, I like 20-pound fluorocarbon FC Sniper Sunline. That's what I throw 95% of the time. Now with like the baby jack and our smaller profile, more finesse, you could go to like a 14 or a 16. And that's going to allow the bait to get a little bit deeper. If you go to a place where the water clarity is a little clearer, or the fishing pressure has changed or got the fish shy, on that baby jack, it's got a little bit lighter hook, so you can use a 14 or 16 pound. The biggest misconception with a chatterbait is they look at it and they think this is a prototype here of the pink one, but they look at it and it's a jig. So what do? They go and tie it on their medium heavy or heavy action graphite extra fast jig rod. Yeah. And the thing that you got to think about a chatterbait is you got to think of it like a crankbait. So the rod is super crucial. I prefer a fiberglass composite rod, something that is very parabolic but has a lot of power to it. So when the fish eats it, the rod loads up before you pull on them and allows the fish to get the bait. I mean, you wouldn't throw a square bill on a extra fast heavy action rod, you know. So that was the misconception a lot when it first came out, is guys were throwing it and they'd be like, oh, I lose them all the time on that thing. Well, yeah, you're going to lose them. It's like throwing a crankbait on a heavy action graphite rod. So, I like a 7.3 heavy action glass rod. I use the Evergreen International. And it's the right setup. I use that rod for a lot of different things, whether it's a swim bait or anything like that. Having that parabolic action with a reaction bait is huge.
Awesome. Great.
So what about, I just want to ask for my own personal sake, so you've got the jackhammer, you've got the baby jack, you've got the stealth blade, we've got the different Zakos to match each of those. When do you pick up one over another? Like in general, Charlie talked about when your best scenario is to throw, a chatterbait in general, but when do you pick up the other ones?
I kind of feel how the pressure is on the lake, that's like if I went to Gunnersville and I went down a stretch with a regular jackhammer and a regular Zako and I caught 5 or 6 and I'm like, man, I think there's more fish here. That's when I'm going to pick up the baby jack and a little bit smaller trailer like the Zako Slim and maybe a little bit lighter line and go back through that area and try to, get some more bites and trigger them up. Like the stealth blade, it doesn't really work as great around grass scenario. It's really, really good. I'm getting ready to go to the Sturgeon Bay Open here in a couple of weeks, and smallmouth really like that thing. It's very subtle. I would throw the stealth blade with either the 3-inch or the Zako Slim on there. Something clear water, more finessey, open water around rocks and stuff like that. So, right now, who's now?
I got a little chihuahua barking. Sorry.
Did Jack send me a package?
The worst. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, I would say 90% of the time I'm going to have a baby jack and a regular jackhammer, and then those clear water scenarios outside of aquatic vegetation, I'm going to have that stealth blade with that skinnier Zako trailer on it. So you kind of got to feel the bite a little bit. Do they want that bigger, bulky bait, or do they want a little bit more finesse? And obviously, when you go to a fishery, you're like, okay, well, are we fishing for 25 pounds or are we fishing for 12 pounds? So you kind of got to know the fishery a little bit too.
Totally. Awesome. Well, Charlie, you got anything else? I'm pretty much out of questions. You've answered just about everything for me for a chatterbait. I'm sure you answered everyone else's too.
Yeah, I guess there could be, what other uses do you have for the Zako when it's not on a chatterbait that you found to be part of your arsenal?
Well, this one right here for smallmouth drop shotting, the 3-inch is phenomenal.
Really?
Yes. So like you can either nose hook it or thread like a size 1 roboworm rebarb on there with a little super glue. We caught a lot of big smallmouth on this thing drop shotting it.
Really?
It doesn't, so like on the swim jig, you can't really throw the regular because it just doesn't have a ton of action. On a swim jig, the swim jig itself doesn't have that much action, unlike a chatterbait. That's why you need a paddle style tail on a swim jig.
Yeah,
exactly.
And you could use this. I've used it on a rig, the paddle tail. Just like any other paddle tail swim bait, it works good. But I really like that 3-inch or even the new slim for a little bit bulkier drop shot bait. It looks pretty sexy in the water, especially if you have current, like at St. Lawrence, stuff like that.
Are you ever throw that on a scrounger head or like a?
I'm not a big scrounger head guy. I dabbled with them, and it like in a pack of 5 of them, you get 2 that work and then 2 that don't. And and then after a while they sit in your box and the lip gets deformed and then they don't work anymore. So I don't play that game.
Can you dive into sorry, I was about to end it, but you've sparked my interest on this 3-incher for smallmouth fishing. Like when you're on Sturgeon Bay, are you, targeting singles and just cast that on their head? Or are you kind of drifting with the wind over some rock, or like, what are you doing with it?
Yeah. You just like you'd throw a roboworm, just find the right spot and cast it out there. It's again, a little bit bigger, bulkier bait that's going to get that drawing power to those bigger fish. Just cast it out. If the wind's blowing, cast it out, drift. If you're fishing a river scenario, pitch it in front of the boat. And the biggest thing is getting the weight on your drop shot, the right speed that it drifts naturally with the current. If you have too heavy of a weight, it gets hung up. The bait's way out in front of you. If you get too light a weight, it's not hitting the bottom. So you got to find the right weight for the current speed that you have. And that's what makes it look really natural.
Awesome. Well, great. Jack, are you open too?
Huh? Fishing the Sturgeon Bay Open? You cut out for a minute, but I'll be sliding up there. So yeah, I was taking notes on this.
Sliding up.
Stealth jackhammer with Zako Slim. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Well,
You're going to Sturgeon Bay Open, Jack?
Yeah, you didn't know. You wouldn't have given out the goods, huh?
Gosh, darn it.
I got it. Too late.
that should
Just
be
throw
so
the pink one. That's all they like, you know?
exactly.
A
Small
lot
off
of people
bright
don't know
colors.
we have a Morning Dawn Zako. That's kind of a sleeper. And, you know, with my buddy Lee, you know, showing everybody the Morning Dawn at the Classic. But a lot of people don't know that we have a Morning Dawn Zako that goes good with that. So, dang it, Jack. Gosh, you just learned my juice.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate y'all jumping on today. And, thanks for everyone tuning in. And every Thursday we drop a new episode. Tune in to Think Outside Fishing Podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, there we go.